The inaugural Joplin Regional Innovation and Technology Summit is just around the corner. Joining us today is Doug Hunt, Director of Entrepreneurship with the Chamber of Commerce, and Jason Rinker with Stronghold Data to tell us what makes this a can't-miss event. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. So start with telling us, what is a Technology and Innovation Summit?
Well, the Chamber applied for a grant that we received, and part of that deliverable is to host a Regional Innovation and Technology Summit. So it was about 10 months ago when we assembled a team and Jason came on board and we started thinking about what exactly that would look like. And we are excited that it has come together and it's almost time for it.
And when you say summit, what exactly? Like, is that everybody coming together, just putting minds, meeting of the minds kind of thing?
In a way it is. It'll be an all-day event with 4 different tracks. And it's an incredible learning opportunity for businesses in general to be inspired by entrepreneurs and to find out what risks there are out there in the cybersecurity world.
Yeah, speaking of cybersecurity, the city of Joplin was in July attacked by ransomware, or a ransomware attack, and the insurance company had to pay out like $300,000 or something like that. Should local governments, as well as like schools and hospitals, should they be a part of this?
Absolutely. Any elected official, any volunteer on a board, paid board members, owners of businesses, just the leadership team in general should come to this event. This is when those organizations hear technology, they sometimes want to pick their most technical employee or their team of employees and send those to a technical event. But really, some of these conversations we're going to have is geared towards leadership, those decision makers. So yes, elected officials especially, because the public sector, and that includes schools and nonprofits, are some of the most highly attacked organizations right now from a cyber standpoint. If you talk to insurance companies, they will tell you that cyber risk now is their greatest risk when it comes to any business, any organization. In fact, I was at a conference not too long ago where some of the public sector that uses a group insurance policy is no longer going to offer cyber liability insurance to those entities. The insurance is one topic that we're going to be covering at this event. I'm really excited for all the different speakers we have under the cybersecurity, but it's not just cybersecurity. As Doug mentioned, it's e-commerce, it's the entrepreneurship. It's November 5th at the James River campus here in Joplin. They've donated their facility, so it was really a great opportunity to leverage some state-of-the-art facilities that they have there. It starts at 7 in the morning for some networking and breakfast, and then it's going to go straight into a keynote speaker. That keynote speaker has a technical background, but he left a bank job to get into the technology, and I think he's going to really touch on the entrepreneurship, the different challenges businesses face, and then get into more of that cybersecurity conversation. So even from that beginning speaker, it's going to be exciting.
And how devastating can an attack like this be on a small business? What are the statistics of survival or survival rate?
Cybersecurity can end a business. It can really severely hamper a business or organization. You know, I mentioned that the public sector is a top target. One of the things that they try to target is your emergency communications. Part of the emergency communications can disrupt a community or an organization, but it also is a way for them to get their payday faster, right? And generally at the end of the day, for their standpoint, it's about getting paid. And that's where they leverage the insurance companies like you talked about. But the statistics say that if an organization's hit and they suffer significant downtime, 60% of them will be out of business within 6 months.
Oh, that's just terrible to think about. And it happens all the time.
Correct.
So talk about e-commerce, Doug. What can people learn at this summit that they couldn't maybe find out on their own?
Well, this is an important thing because for our area, when we look at the greater metro area, like the region of Southwest Missouri compared to other parts of the country, we are about 140 e-commerce stores below what the national average is. So that tells us that we still have a lot of opportunity for local businesses, retail shops, and so forth to step into that e-commerce space. And I think what's happened is that if a business owner considered e-commerce as little as 5 or 10 years ago, I mean, it was thousands of dollars to set that up. That has streamlined tremendously. So now a small shop can set up an e-commerce site and look like they're a major national retail chain and get into that with variables, whether they need to do warehousing or outsource that on fulfillment, and it's a lot easier than what you think. So that's why we have our monthly e-commerce meetup, but the summit is about learning. So for those businesses that show up and they maybe have dismissed e-commerce in the past, we want to show them the details about the opportunities that they may be missing out and the new revenue that they may be missing out on.
How can, I guess, a small business, how does one compete with like the Amazons of the world or the Walmarts of the world by going online? Is that even a competition?
Well, I'm kind of an entrepreneur, so
Yeah.
the first thing I'm going to say is you got to bust through that fear and get
Right.
that head trash out of your brain. And that is, you can compete with those individuals. So for example, there is a t-shirt shop in Lamar, Missouri, that has a retail shop on the square, and they do a little bit of business out the front door, but they're running thousands of dollars out the back door. And they have created a particular niche for themselves. So are they competing head to head with Amazon? No, not necessarily, but they have found a niche, and it doesn't matter where they're physically located.
Sure.
They have just found a niche out on the web, and they're making a great income for their family. Those are the opportunities that we want to make sure that everybody is exposed to so that they can think, maybe we should try that.
Once everything went online, it didn't matter where, like you said, where you're located.
Right.
So who are some of the speakers? You've teased that, we have world-renowned speakers. One of them's a former CIA spy. Can you tell us any of the names?
Well, the big names on this cybersecurity, I'm going to let Jason handle that. So those are some big ones. Those are like, I would call our headliners, and they're pretty exciting.
Big gets.
So yes, we do have a speaker. She used to be a spy, and she also used to recruit spies for the CIA. She's going to be speaking about insider threats and how every organization, again, elected officials, please come, elected officials, board members, if you serve on a board, whether that's on your church or whether that's the school board, please come and hear her speak, because insider threats are the organization's two biggest risks, and that's employees and their vendors.
Okay.
And so she's going to talk about those. So vendor management is a big piece. Another individual, his name's Chris Hagnaggy. He is going to be talking about social engineering, how we're all human. He is considered one of the best social engineers out there. He has many books. He also is helped create the Innocent Lives Foundation, which is a charitable group that goes out and goes after child predators online.
Oh.
So I hope he kind of talks a little bit about that during his presentation, but great individual. We also have Bob Zuckus. He trains the boards of Fortune 500 companies, and he's going to be talking to these elected official and board members that are there about what risks they need to look at. We also have a speaker coming in and talking about, the acronym is CMMC, and if you are a vendor in the Department of Defense supply chain, you know exactly what that means. We have Max Pruger, who's going to be talking about HIPAA and the single biggest change to the HIPAA, which if you're in the medical community, you know what HIPAA means. It is the single biggest change in a decade relating to the HIPAA laws. We also have a great panel of speakers that's going to be a Secret Service agent. We have the Missouri Highway Patrol when they talk about from a law enforcement perspective. We also have the Missouri Homeland Security coming. So that's just some of the highlights that come to my head right now. Another big one is the Insurance Center here in town reached out and is bringing speakers to talk from Travelers, who does a lot on the cyber liability insurance side. In fact, I was at an insurance conference, and an actuary is stated saying if you had $1 billion to insure of physical equipment or real estate versus a cyber liability policy, they suggested taking the cyber liability policy.
Absolutely.
So that's a little bit of the speakers coming on that side.
That's fun. So talk about the pitch competition. That's, a big thing too.
It is. We're excited about that. In fact, this morning, at the time of the recording today, we had our semifinal round that will send the small businesses to the pitch competition, which is in the entrepreneurial track. And that will have 3 categories: high school, collegiate, and then small businesses. So the 2 representatives that will go to finals in the small businesses will be Creature Comfort or Creature Sodas, which is a
Okay.
I think you've heard of them. They're local. And then also Unearth Potential, which is one of the new businesses in the ATTC incubator. So we're excited about that. And then on the e-commerce side, a couple of our speakers, we're going to dovetail into that track, the digital workforce and how important that is for us to grow that. So Bart Payton and Matthew Johnson with Midwestern Interactive here locally will be speaking about that. And there's huge opportunity there. They're looking to hire more than 100 people very soon.
And these are jobs people can do at home, right? I mean, they don't have to go to a bricks and mortar kind of place anymore.
Or relocate to a big city.
Right. Well, and I've heard big city people are relocating here.
That's what's driving up our real estate prices.
Because they can work from home while still working for that same business.
Exactly.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming out to talk to us about this new event.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to thank Doug Hunt and Jason Rinker for being here to talk about this inaugural event. You can still register to attend the event on November 5th by going to eventbrite.com, and you can search for Joplin or Joplin Regional Innovation and Technology Summit. We'll be right back with Joplin City Manager to discuss the upcoming ballot issue that could mean millions in new tax revenue for the city. Stay with us.
Use your fingerprint, your face, or a code. At home or work or on the road. 2 steps are safer than 1 or 3 or 4. And keeping data safe is so much fun. Authenticate, strong, authenticate. Make your logins extra safe. Protect your identity from tragic fate. Authenticate, strong, authenticate.
Welcome back. Partially driven by the pandemic and partially by the change in shopping trends, the global online shopping market size hit nearly $4 trillion in 2020. As part of this change, cities are losing out on millions in tax revenue. Joining us now on Newsmakers is Joplin City Manager Nick Edwards and Rob O'Brien from the former chamber director and now consultant.
Citizens Committee for the Proposition Action.
Great.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is a use tax, Nick?
Use tax is a tax on online purchases that have been shipped to Joplin. It's not a new tax. It's a tax that's existed for a while, but the use tax would change the responsibility from the buyer to remit sales tax and put the responsibility on the seller to collect the use tax. And that is a tax source, a revenue stream that we think would be helpful for the city to take on some new services.
And how does that differ from a sales tax? Or is it similar to?
Yeah, a use tax is looks and feels like a sales tax. So currently, I'll use an example. If you went to one of our department stores here in Joplin and you bought bed sheets, you would pay a city's portion of a sales tax, you would pay a state portion of a sales tax, and some other taxing jurisdictions. If you bought those same bed sheets online from that same company and you had it shipped to your house, you'd only be paying a small portion because the city does not have a use tax.
Okay. And do sellers right now, do they collect that tax and just they get to keep it for themselves, or is it something that would be tacked onto like the price?
Some sellers are collecting the use tax. The tax collections funnel through the Missouri Department of Revenue, but the main point, or the point behind the election, is that the city is not collecting or receiving those tax proceeds. Right.
So it's a level the playing field kind of thing. That way, the online seller isn't getting that fund, and then we're not getting it.
Certainly. I think the leveling of the playing field is evident, or is kind of clear to see when you look at some businesses that used to be here that aren't here. They have had to close because they couldn't keep up with the online purchasing.
And about how much revenue do we think that the city or can be generated for the city?
Sure, it's not. We don't have an exact number. We can only make an estimate. From what we've seen in other communities, they've experienced between an 8 and 15% increase in their sales tax. And so for the city of Joplin, that would be nearly $3 to $4 million.
That's a big number for the city.
Certainly.
Webb City and I heard Carthage, they passed it as well, so they're already in that game.
Correct. Over half of the Missouri cities have passed a use tax.
And how does the business community feel about it? Rob, you probably have your pulse there.
Well, I think when you look around the landscape, certainly we have small businesses that would like to see a little more parity or equity with those online sellers. In that some of them themselves sell online.
Right.
They found that as a good revenue stream for them, especially through the pandemic. Many saw a way to shift a little bit to help their business. But they already recognize the system because they have to do it for other states and other communities. So they know that this goes on. And businesses do buy things online and out of state themselves, and so they could be subject to that as well. But by the same token, they operate here. And they want Joplin to be successful. They want to see good public safety. They want the parks to be nice when they're trying to recruit talent in. They want the community to look good and have good housing stock. And so they recognize that the city has lost some of that investment in sales tax purchases locally to online. And if that helps retrieve some of that and make the city a better place, they're for it.
Yeah, and it would help if ever anything like the pandemic happened again where we go on lockdown, God forbid, so businesses can continue to operate.
Well, and it does help the resiliency of the city budget in that as well, because of course we had some shutdowns, we had fewer people out, of course, and in terms of the safety aspect of that, and so that's a potential impact to the city in a situation like that. And to be able to have this revenue stream now collected on all purchases made within Joplin, regardless of whether it's locally at the store or whether it's online, it helps the city sustain its services, all of the things we expect as citizens in terms of being safe and having the streets fixed and making sure that the parks are nice and all of those things.
Yeah, because as a resident, I always felt this little pang of guilt whenever I would buy something online thinking, oh, my city's not going to get this tax. But this would be so much better, alleviate my conscience for sure. So in part, the ballot issue says, a use tax return shall not be required to be filed by persons whose purchases from out-of-state vendors do not in total exceed $2,000 in any calendar year. What does that mean for the layperson? Because it's kind of like a lot of words.
Yeah. That's probably the worst part of the ballot. It's probably the most confusing part of the ballot. But currently, you are supposed to declare your purchases, and if those purchases have exceeded $2,000. Currently, the obligation is on the buyer to do that. So when you submit your taxes, you're supposed to declare that. Gets very little compliance, very little return on that. So to make it easier, the use tax would shift that obligation from the buyer to the seller to collect that.
Okay,
tax.
So people shouldn't be worried that means they have to file a tax return, right?
Correct.
Yeah, because when I read that, I thought, what does that mean? So,
Yeah, and that is kind of unfortunately that you have to use the state designated language on a ballot issue, and the state is trying to make it clear again that they do have, if you look at your state income tax form, that paragraph that says, oh, if you've spent more than $2,000, you need to pay taxes on that. And people overlook that consistently.
All the time.
And again, as Nick mentioned, this is a good thing in that regard, because it does take that off of us as individuals to try and track these purchases we make online and then have to figure out how to remit that to the state and all of that. It's all on the seller then.
Right.
You know, whether you're ordering from Amazon or Etsy or wherever, that's on them.
Sure. That makes it so much easier.
Yeah. So you've already captured it, and you don't have to do anything else except enjoy what you've received.
There you go. And I've seen the new signs pop up around town, the yard signs, if you will, like election, saying vote yes on, is it Prop 2 or what's it?
Proposition Action.
Proposition Action,
Yes.
okay. And you're part of that Citizens Committee?
I am. I'm the co-chair of that committee, and so our role has been first to look at what the city put together. Nick spent last year in a listening tour, had more than 7,000 comments from citizens on what they would like to see for a better Joplin. The city staff then took that and worked with the council to create a set of almost 50 action plans for the betterment of the community, and I think that's really what we want to talk about Proposition Action. But then our committee really kind of became more educated on that, kind of walked through with the city staff what all of these things meant and what some of the priorities could be in the global perspective, you know. And now, as a volunteer citizens committee, we're the ones who are driving this Vote Yes to Proposition Action campaign.
And so if approved by voters, or hopefully it will be, when will it take effect?
That's a great question. It should go into effect. The city should start to see revenue the first full quarter after the election, so we anticipate April.
Oh, okay. That's pretty quick. And what will the city do with this revenue? You said there's an action plan. What are your top gets?
Yeah, just to give you some sampling of the 47 action plans that we have, some of the bigger ticket items, some of the more impactful items, one of the things we want to do is increase our investment into public safety. The listening tour kind of showed that there's some folks in the community that don't feel safe, and that's not a good thing for a community. We need to have a safe environment, because that's kind of the building block for a lot of the things we do. So we have 2 action plans that would direct resources to improving the staffing or pay of our police and fire groups. Those are dedicated men and women, and they have tough jobs, and there's a need for more resources in those groups. Another thing, one of the loudest concerns that I heard was about issues of neighborhood blight and decline.
Oh, yeah.
That certainly negatively impacts the community. It hurts our ability to grow.
The broken window theory.
Broken window theory, you got it. So we want to provide, we want to make investments in code enforcement activities. We want to bring back a popular program called JHAP, which you might remember.
I love that program. That helps so many people.
Yeah. I'd like to bring that citywide to drive development of vacant property. We want to incentivize teardowns. Those homes that have lost almost all their value or at the end of their life, instead of letting those hang around depressing neighborhoods, we'd like to incentivize to tear those down and replenish our housing stock. So those are just a few of the action plans. All of those action plans require additional funding, which is why we're here today.
Well, and JHAP, really, it is one of those programs that, because, well, the tornado took out that center part of town, that there's a lot of the lower income, like houses, actual houses. They may not have been in the greatest shape, but rent now in Joplin is through the roof. And JHAP can help with home ownership, right, rather than renting.
Certainly, that's a. I think that was one of the bigger benefits of JHAP, was the assistance to for folks to buy homes, first-time home buyers. but also I think helped strengthen and improve our housing stock, and it provided, I think, a lot of different options for folks, and that's a good thing for community.
Well, is the police and fire issue, there was a big to-do with the rate of pay, and right now there's a lot of lack of personnel. Do you think that this program will, or I guess the tax revenue, once it's generated, can help bring in more people?
Certainly. As I've said, our police officers and firefighters, they have difficult jobs, and they're the backbone for our community. And so for us to have any sort of success into the future, we need to make sure that those services have the resources that they need. So I want to again kind of underscore, highlight, or bold some of the action plans that would dedicate resources towards improving the staffing or pay for our police and firefighters. Those action plans are online. We've posted those online to be transparent and to kind of show the commitment that we're making towards improving resources for public safety.
And people can go to joplinmo.org, and
Correct.
all of that's on there?
Yes, joplinmo.org. There's elections page that kind of shows gives all the background about the current elections, past elections too, for that matter. But there's a section on our website for action plans where people can find that information.
Because this is a follow-up vote to the last one that was around for stormwater and sewer repair and parks and.
Yes, this is a little different in that we're trying to improve service and standards within the community. We're really trying to tackle some pretty big issues from a lot of different directions. The bigger vision is to revitalize the community and create a community where everybody has an opportunity to thrive. And renewing the parks and stormwater tax certainly gave us a good boost. Proposition action is another step to take to help bring about a thriving community, and so that's why we're here to chat about the election.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on and talking about it.
And I would just add, in that because parks and stormwater, it's an incremental sales tax. The public safety sales tax, since you brought that up, that's an incremental sales tax. And those are part of several sales taxes that the city has. And as Nick mentioned, a use tax looks just like the sales tax in essence. So, for all of those people who said, well, we voted for parks and stormwater, and thank you so much. We've had this now going on 20 years, and we'll have it for another 10, and we've seen such great projects that have gotten done that make some neighborhoods better in terms of addressing stormwater issues that they had, but also nicer parks. But we're also leaving money on the table, if you will, because that increment for parks and stormwater isn't getting collected today on these online purchases.
Exactly.
And so this puts more dollars into the parks and stormwater, for example. So the Parks Department can hire park rangers to help make sure that the parks are safer. Nick brought up safety. It's not only just police and firemen, but what can the Parks Department do in that realm? And so the entire city benefits from this. But the nice thing about proposition action is that there are very focused. It's a lot. It's 47 points. But it's focused on things that really improve the community throughout. More cops on the street, better pay, better fire response, nicer parks, safer parks, addressing blighted neighborhoods, creating ways to help young families get homes, all of these things.
And I can't stress enough how important that is for our community. I thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Nick Edwards, Joplin City Manager, Doug Hunt from the Joplin Chamber of Commerce, and Jason Rinker with Stronghold Data, and Rob O'Brien with the Citizens Action Committee for joining us today. This is Newsmakers on KGCS TV from the Ruth Colpin Studios here at Missouri Southern State University, and I'm Bobby Potroff. We'll see you again soon.